Rajya Sabha MP and former Law Minister Kapil Sibal today made some scathing remarks against the judiciary and courts, including the Supreme Court and Chief Justice of India. Practicing lawyer himself, surprisingly, Kapil Sibal alleged that sensitive cases were being assigned to certain judges and the outcome is already known. He also said that the process is such that the CJI decides which bench will deal with the matter. Now, the courts can never be independent, eventually reaching the conclusion that when it comes to the Supreme Court, there is no hope left.
50 साल के बाद मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि मुझे इस संस्था से कोई उम्मीद नहीं है। आप बड़ी-बड़ी अदालत की जजमेंट्स की बात करते हैं, लेकिन जमीन पे क्या हो रहा है उसको आप देखिए और ये सोचो कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट के द्वारा आपको राहत मिलने वाली है, आपको बड़ी भारी गलतफहमी है। जिस कोर्ट में जज बैठाए जाते हैं थ्रू अ प्रोसेस ऑफ कॉम्प्रोमाइज, जिस कोर्ट में कोई सिस्टम नहीं है कि कौन सा कोर्ट किसकी अदालत पे लगेगा, जिसमें चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया तय करता है कि ये मैटर किसके साथ जाएगा और कब जाएगा, कब सुनवाई होगी, कोई सिस्टम नहीं है, वो कोर्ट कभी इंडिपेंडेंट हो ही नहीं सकती।
The statement made by Kapil Sibal and the Congress leaders are on the line of their existing mindset. For the Congress party and their like-minded people, courts or any constitutional authority must favor them or work according to their interest. Whenever constitutional authorities or the courts give a decree or a judgment against their mindset, they start attacking the constitutional authorities itself.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
An extremely worrying charge if a practicing and a very senior lawyer at that himself says the Supreme Court is not to be trusted. Where is this coming from? Arjun Sheron, lawyer, is joining us along with Lokesh Jindal, political analyst, Tushar Gupta, senior editor of Swaraj. And that first question is to you, Shehzad Poonawala, national spokesperson of the BJP. What is the state of our country where a practicing lawyer doesn't have expectations from the Supreme Court anymore?
You know, this is a mindset where you have conditional commitment towards the Constitution. If I win a case, the Supreme Court is good. If I win an election, the Election Commission or the EVMs are good. Otherwise, I will start undermining these institutions. It's not surprising. Kapil Sibal came from a legacy and went into a legacy that have questioned the vaccines as BJP vaccines. They have routinely doubted security agencies and have held up as correct the terrorists. He has doubted the armed forces on surgical strikes. So, you know, he comes from that legacy. But what is important in this particular case is that look who's talking. If hypocrisy had a face, it would look and seem and sound exactly like Kapil Sibal. Kapil Sibal has been the lawyer of the cause of the first families of Indian politics, which actually undermined and gave the Indian judiciary their darkest years. You remember Justice Baharul Islam in the courts, then went back as Rajya Sabha MP, then back to the courts, then went back to contest an election. Justice Ranganath Mishra gives a clean chit on 1984, comes to the Supreme Court, then goes to the Rajya Sabha. Then you had the likes of Justice A.N. Ray, and we've seen all of that. So, you know, when you come from that legacy, today you can criticize judgments, but to undermine an institution merely because you have faith in a Parivartantra and because things are not going well for the Parivar, you think it's a threat on the Loktantra. That's hypocrisy and that's how it looks.
Arjun Sheron, when it's convenient, you say, great job. When it's not, you say Supreme Court is compromised and can't be trusted. How?
Padmaja, you look at his entire speech. It's a 30-minute speech. I've seen and heard it twice. And you are, really, putting this across in a very different light. People are picking up one or two lines. People are making statements. The law minister made a statement that our enforcement directorate is autonomous. Any independent observer of Indian politics and law will tell you that ED is not autonomous. Anyone who has seen the Supreme Court, and Mr. Sibal, of course, has as law minister, as a senior advocate with 50 years of practice, I have seen the speech. There is not even a single objectionable statement.
So what did he mean?
What is wrong when he says that the PMLA judgment was not correctly decided? Many people have been criticizing it. Many legal experts have done so.
But how do you decide whether a judgment is correctly decided or not?
Even judges, 4 judges of the Supreme Court had come out in protest.
Sir, barely 3 months ago in May, the same Congress was hailing the Supreme Court when the sedition law was put on hold. At that time, the same Supreme Court was to be trusted. In August, that same Supreme Court is not to be trusted. Why? What are the parameters for deciding that the Supreme Court has given a right judgment and this is the wrong judgment?
Padanga, the thing is, Supreme Court is not one Supreme Court. It has, more than 13, 14 benches, and there are multiple judges. The problem is with how the system is structured. Mr. Sibal raised 2 points. One regarding selection of judges, appointment of judges, and second, how matters are allocated. And we know for a fact, even Supreme Court judges, they themselves had come out in protest, talking about how matters are allocated. We know about the 4-judge protest. All of you had covered that. And there can be individual decisions, and even at the sedition decision,
but
for example.
But sir, the Supreme Court is not looked at as benches or individuals. It is seen as an institution.
And that is what Mr.
So essentially what you're
saying.
saying is that some judges are good, but some judges are not to be trusted. Is that what you're saying?
No, I am not saying that. I am saying there are structural issues within the Supreme Court, which Mr. Sibal has pointed out.
Structural issues.
These are being pointed out by one of the leading lawyers of this country, and we should really put our minds together how we can fix it.
May I say something, sir, with your indulgence? This selection process, did it get compromised from 2014 onwards, in your view, or was this the case after the judges' cases where the Supreme Court took onto itself to appoint judges? Before that, the executive appointed, and I have given you several instances of how the executive then, especially of Indira Gandhi ji, appointed the likes of Baharul Islam and Rangnath Mishra and others, and I don't want to get into the supersession of the judges, but having said that, did it break after 2014 or prior to 2014 also it was broken? And if it was broken, how many instances of Mr. Kapil Sibal, the stalwart lawyer, who was even the law minister, by the way, flagged this? And secondly, you also said that there's no system to determine the cases, the roster. Is that something unique to 2014 onwards? Or has the system, in your view, the structure, in your view, corroded only after 2014, or was it always corroded? If it was, then please show me statements as law minister or earlier where he said the same thing.
Arjun Sheron.
Shehzad, he is not on this show. I am not his lawyer. I can't speak for him. But I'm sure, as a fact, after 2014, there has been a capture of institution. This includes
Why?
the Election
Because
Commission, the
Supreme
Supreme Court, the
at night you want to say everything
all
bad at
independent bodies. I am not saying that the
no, one second.
I'm not saying that the Congress governments were Patsaf and they used to not interfere. But all I'm saying is look at the situation of the Supreme Court, the High Courts, the EC. It is a really poor situation despite the guarantees of the
Arjun, you're an intelligent guy.
They are not being safeguarded. It's a very, very unfortunate situation.
Okay, one by one, please.
And we want it to be an institution we can all look up to.
You are claiming that after 2014 there has been a definite capture and corrosion of institutions, including the Supreme Court, but I don't understand on what basis are you saying that? And if that indeed has been the case, some of the most striking setbacks that the central government has got, for example, the fact that the single border blockade wasn't lifted, despite the fact that the centre went again and again to the Supreme Court. The Shaheen Bagh blockade wasn't lifted despite the fact that the centre sought specific guidelines on the issue from the Supreme Court. At that time, that order itself was hailed as a big setback and slap in the face of the centre, and yet we are supposed to believe that the centre has completely taken over these institutions. This is the most strange takeover I have seen. Shehzad Poonawala.
He said that after 2014 in particular, the system has got more corroded.
One second,
Mr. Arjun. Just a second. Let him make his point. I'll come back to you. Yes.
Arjun, we must talk. Arjun, please, now can we not indulge in a...
One at a time, please, so we can all have our say. We will all get our words in if we listen to each other. Make your quick point, then I'll go to Mr. Sheron again. Yes.
Arjun,
all right.
Arjun, because I credit you with some amount of intelligence, please tell me that in 2014, post 2014 and prior to 2014, the systems are the same, the structures are the same. But since you say that it's been corroded beyond recognition after 2014, please tell me that has any judge of the Supreme Court been superseded and a Chief Justice has been made? And I am sure that you would believe that that was the darkest era of the judicial years, when, because a person did not give a favorable judgment in the emergency to support the emergency, that supersession happened. Do you think that has happened after 2014, or did it happen after 2014 that somebody who contested on a Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha ticket of Congress was made a judge? Which of these two events that would certainly qualify as the darkest days of judiciary happen after 2014? Facts, please.
Arunja, all I'm saying is that there has never been in the history of the Supreme Court been a strike or a protest by Supreme Court.
That is your standard.
That happened
not the
after
fact that
2014.
Justice
we know that for a fact.
was allowed to supersede judges like H.R. Khanna, who later on resigned because he gave the voice of dissent in the emergency. That's your
speak
standard.
At least, please. If you credit me with some intelligence, please hear me out at least.
But it's depleting fast.
The Supreme Court is the apex court of this country. We all have faith in the Supreme Court. At the same time, it is also in our collective interest that the Supreme Court should function properly. And the government of the day, it could be a Congress or a BJP government, the government of the day should not influence its decision.
So tell me this, had this been that dictatorial government, and let me get in Lokesh Jindal on this. It seems very strange that we're talking about a dictatorship, yet it's the weirdest dictatorship that a group of Supreme Court judges have a press conference against a government, and then one of those judges actually gets promoted. What kind of dictatorship is this? This is the worst dictatorship, Lokesh Jindal.
Padmaja, if you talk about now that Shehzad talked about post 2014, how did it led to the decline of the Supreme Court? So let me remind him, what about the transfer of judges such as Justice Patel, which went unquestioned, and Akil Qureshi, Murlidhar, all these transfers, although they were disputed, but they were never questioned by the judiciary. In fact, it was after this only that 4 judges such as Chalameshwar and then Ranjan Gogoi, M.B. Lokur, Korean Joseph, they all came up together and they questioned how the allocation of key cases were done by Deepak Mishra. The point is, when we are talking about judicial administration at large, whether it is appointment of the judges, whether it is allocation of cases to the judges, even with respect to appointment of judges at the higher judiciary, all these, they do not have transparency. The government came with a half-hearted measure in the form of introduction of NJAC in 2014. However, it was not sincere for it. And after 2014, what it did with the law ministry, it simply tried to have its own
I am glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to refer to the National Judicial Appointments Commission. You know, today when Mr. Sibal is fulminating about the appointments and the allocation of cases and how the roster is made, why is it that in 2015, when the Judicial Appointments Commission was mooted by the BJP, here is what the leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha, Anand Sharma, said. There is no need after the Supreme Court judgment, a watershed judgment, to take any steps that may lead to any kind of confrontation with the court. We will not support any such move. At that time, Anand Sharma was deputy leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha. If you wanted transparency, if you wanted how appointments should happen, if you wanted it to be even-handed, why did you not support the NJC? Far from it, Congress openly opposed it. Why?
Because the way to NJAC would have been, first of all, appointment of some form of a commission so as to have competitive examination for higher judiciary, the way we have for lower judiciary.
Sir, you can argue about the process, but you rubbish the entire proposal itself. And today you're saying, अरे transparency क्यों नहीं हो रही है? सारे cases एक ही bench के पास जा रहे हैं, कुछ लोग handpick किए जा रहे हैं. Let me quickly get in Tushar Gupta as well. He's been waiting very patiently. Tushar Gupta, transparency is the need of the hour.
Padmaja, Kapil Sibal, as a lawyer and then as a congressman 2017, made an argument against before the Supreme Court. You know what he said? He said, can the Supreme Court delay the Ram Mandir verdict to after the 2019 elections? That is the kind of clout he wanted to have in the Supreme Court. Today he doesn't have it and he's frustrated. He was a part of the system for decades, the very system today he is questioning. For Congress, attacking the institutions has become a routine. Either it be present congressmen or former Congress people. Today, the integrity of the institutions, be it the Supreme Court, be it any lower court, be it the Election Commission, it's become directly proportional for the Congress to the number of BJP seats in the Lok Sabha. That is not how it works. You say that the Supreme Court is inclined towards BJP, but it's the Supreme Court that schools Nupur Sharma unfairly. It is the Supreme Court that puts a stop at the farm laws. It's the Supreme Court that questions
the Supreme Court and the judiciary is supposed to perform in a democracy is that of preserving civil liberty. Now the government came up with draconian laws such as UAPA Act. Especially if we talk about the PMLA Act, it is draconian in character. Any person, he can prove that there was a crime, and then the money that was realized from the proceeds of Act, that could attract the ED, and subsequently an Act would be given effect to. But the point is, judiciary over here, it has failed to protect the civil liberty against arbitrary action of the state. The primary task that the judiciary is supposed to perform is to safeguard.
Okay, so you didn't like the Supreme Court ruling, hence the law is draconian and the Supreme Court is compromised. Shehzad,
you know, there's so much hypocrisy floating around in the air. Look, first of all, Mr. Kapil Sibal has reached the Rajya Sabha with the help of an institution called the Samajwadi Party, and that's also a public institution like courts, which has no transparency or internal accountability or democracy, or nothing to speak of it, and the previous institution will also say. So I think, Mr. Jindal, if your arguments are strong, you don't need to interrupt. It's only the sign of a weak man that interrupts.
No.
You decide how weak are you. The more you interrupt, the weaker you are. Mr. Jindal, common courtesy and intelligence demand that you don't interrupt me. But you lack both.
Please.
Thank you. Now, secondly, Mr. Jindal, now you've again lost your intelligence and your courtesy.
You had your say, let him have his.
Your intelligence and your courtesy are like Rahul Gandhi's attention span. Your intelligence and your courtesy are like Rahul Gandhi's intelligence span. Please, sir. Please, don't interrupt.
And
don't make me...
Okay, now we'll get into a tutu meme at the end of a perfectly civilized debate.
Finish your point, yes. I know it's difficult with congressmen around, but let me make a cogent argument. Now, secondly, he spoke about the 4 judges who protested. One of those judges happened to be a man called Ranjan Gogoi. Once he gave the judgment on Ram Mandir, these people started abusing him because they didn't like the judgment on Ram Mandir. This is their hypocrisy. Now, please, sir, please, can you please not interrupt? Can you please let me complete? I take only 30 seconds. What is your problem?
Okay, silence for 10 seconds, please. Yes, finish.
So, the man is hailing as the poster boy of dissent in the Supreme Court. The moment that poster boy of dissent gave a judgment which he felt was correct, along with other judges, brother judges, he became a persona non grata for this first family. And lastly, I just want to have one question. The UAPA laws, which you today call an assault on the civil liberties, and the PMLA laws were signed off by Mr. Kapil Sibal as law minister. Now you come and criticize them. Hypocrisy ki kuch to seema rakhiye.
But maybe they brought it in good faith because democracy was alive and kicking at that time. But post 2014,
हम करे तो चमत्कार और तुम करे तो गुनहगार और हम सब बेरोजगार.
Dictatorship में the laws, they become a weapon of killing democracy, whereas when democratic values are flourishing, those same laws are democratic. Anyhow, it's interesting that this argument should come at a time when a senior leader of the Congress has suggested that if you give us the institutions, we will show you how elections are won. Maybe the lack of those institutions in your hand is fueling the anger. Thanks very much, all gentlemen, for having joined me. Thanks for watching.